The headlines tell you what happened, but not why Jamaica's school violence is getting worse. Jamaica doesn't have a school problem, it has a violence problem, and it's showing up in classrooms. It starts with a fight in a classroom, but what it reveals about Jamaica's society is far more disturbing. How did Jamaica's school become breeding grounds for violence, and who's responsible for that? What if the violence we're seeing in Jamaican schools rather, isn't random, but a warning sign of something much deeper? Something is going very wrong inside Jamaica's school, and no one wants to say it out loud. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you'd like, share, and subscribe. And the title we're going to deal with today is The Dark Truth Behind Jamaica's School Violence in Crisis. Now, school violence in Jamaica is rising, but the real story goes deeper than the headlines. What's fueling this crisis inside the nation's schools? Is it just indiscipline, or are there deeper social, cultural, and economic forces at play? In this video, we break down the dark truth behind Jamaica's school violence crisis, from what's happening in classrooms to the wider issues affecting youth across the country. This is more than just school fights. It may be a reflection of something far bigger. Watch until the end and tell us what you think. Is this a school problem or a national crisis? This is what we have to be looking at and we want to explore in this afternoon's program. Something is changing inside Jamaica's schools, and it's not just about discipline anymore. Fights are becoming more frequent, tensions are rising, and many are asking, how did it get this bad? But the truth is, what's happening in these schools may be a reflection of something much deeper. In recent years, reports of violence in Jamaican schools have been increasing, from physical altercations to more serious incidents that are now capturing national attention. But is this just a youth problem, or is it a warning sign of a wider crisis unfolding in society? Now, recently we had many headlines that were encapsulating what is happening in our schools. We had it during the Easter holidays, during the championships, what we call champs in Jamaica. There was a story circulating on both mainstream media and on social media suggesting that a student at Jamaica College was brutally assaulted, brutally beaten up by some of his schoolmates who were allegedly actually suggested that some money fell and the money belonged to the young man. And when he went to pick it up, the other students bullied him into saying that is their money, and they started to strike him very hard, bruised him badly. And, I don't know if he had concoction in his head concoctions, and also, but his eyes were severely destroyed, brutally, with a brutal, bullying at Jamaica College. Now, when the school was contacted, they acknowledged that they heard something of the sort and they were investigating. I'm not sure if the investigations are complete, or if the mother had not gone to the media, if she would have gotten any redress, any recourse. But the fact of the matter is that I think, shortly thereafter, the parent took him, from the school because she withdrew his like being linked to the school. She actually took him away from the school, took him out of the school, and perhaps he's gone to another school. But another point that they were raising why he was bullied was because of his American accent. And I was saying, why should we be bullying people because of their accents? When Jamaicans go abroad, also they are too victims of abuse because of their accents. So we need to understand, teach our children that people are different, and nothing is wrong to have a distinctive accent, something that is not necessarily it might not sound Jamaican, it might not sound, Kingstonian or whatever. The fact of the matter, we ought to learn to accept and appreciate diversity, which in some cases Jamaicans don't know how to do that. Very important that we understand that. Now, there's another crisis also, another incident in which at Jamaica College, another youngster was badly bruised, was badly beaten. And the parents weren't aware of what had happened until he went home, perhaps 2 days after he had been badly beaten up. And he was suffering from headaches, severe headaches. And when they inquired, he actually, told his parents what had taken place there at Jamaica College. And apparently he seemed to have stolen or taken some things articles of clothing or money that belonged to some of the other boys. And for that reason, because he had not returned it, they decided that they would have practiced what we call vigilante justice. Instead of going to the principal, to the dean of discipline, they took justice into their own hands. And it was video recorded on social media, on social media also, in which we saw the young man brutally, beating up the person who had allegedly stolen articles of clothing and money from them. Now, we're not suggesting that what the young man did was not good. It was not good. It was not wise for him if he did it. I think he acknowledged it. I think the Jamaica Observer did carry a story in which they suggested that he did acknowledge that he actually took it and had not returned it. And so, his parents need to find out why he had done that. But so much so, I don't think that he should have been that badly beaten up by the youngsters, that they should have reported him to the authorities. But this is what is happening in Jamaica, that Jamaica is a lawless society. So if you show me any sign that you're disrespecting me, which the fact that he took their money and did not give it back to them, or their articles of clothing, they would have been, they would have appeared to have been softies. So they didn't want to be softies. So the best thing is to bat him up and to show him that they are in charge, and that he needs to listen to them. He doesn't have to listen to adults because they are bad men. Okay, that is the sort of image that Jamaicans have of themselves. That if nobody should disrespect me, right? Nobody should disrespect me. And if they do disrespect me, I'm going to, do whatever I want to do with them. And that's exactly what they do to the young man. And this is a wider societal problem, societal issue that we've got to deal with. We don't know how to resolve conflicts. Jamaicans don't know how to resolve conflicts. And perhaps as I'm speaking on the matter right now, and we're speaking about schools, I think we need to have a course called conflict resolution. You might be able to, yes, I think, and it should start from primary school right up, and in which we're going to give incidents rather, not incidences, but incidents of situations in which children might find themselves, or real situations, and ask our youngsters how they will deal with it. But just to also train them in modes of conflict resolution. Remember now that it's not just for their childhood years or their teenage years, but it's for right into adulthood. Okay, I think we need to do that. Very important. Maybe it can become part of the guidance counseling curriculum, because guidance counseling in Jamaica is a joke, right? And even when I was going to school, many of the times they weren't there, or when they came, they really did not really offer anything of great value. Okay, and I hope that it has changed now, because they're paid well. The guidance counselors generally are paid better than the regular teachers. So the fact of the matter is that they should do their jobs. Okay, I know it's hard, but that is the sort of profession that you actually decided to move into. And the principals, the vice principals, need to ensure that the guidance counselors do their jobs, and it's not just a free session where you just come and interact with the students. Yes, you have to interact with the students, but it should be a standard curriculum, or a standard curriculum in which, yes, just like Spanish or science, or it has what you're going to be teaching, how you're going to teach it, the methodology, okay? Guidance counselors need now to develop a program. You can't be just going to classes and talking about whatever you want to, whatever is on the mind. Sometimes you have to do that because we have to be practical, but I think that guidance counseling should be aimed at conflict resolution. How do we help our students to resolve conflicts of all sorts? Very important that we do that because we're heading in the wrong direction at the moment. Okay? Now, across the island, incidents of school violence are being reported with growing concern. Students clashing with students, in some cases, even confrontations involving teachers. For many, this is no longer shocking, it's becoming normalized. And that's where the real danger begins, because when violence becomes normal, it stops being questioned. And I heard of another incident in which a youngster or two youngsters, I should say, in St. Thomas had also an altercation, and one ended up dead. Okay, dead. Whatever the dispute was about, that should not have happened. And where are the adults in the room? I'm seeing sometimes some of these incidents on the streets, and adults are on the streets and they do not intervene. But I guess because our society is so violent, they don't want to intervene because if they should, then they also might be attacked. So what we see on the streets, people are just turning a blind eye to what they see. Because if they get involved, then next thing they might also be slaughtered or their children. So the best thing to do is to just not pay any attention to what they're doing. In other words, let them kill themselves. And could the teachers also have that sort of disposition? Perhaps they do. Perhaps they do, because why engage yourself in in these fights when the government is not even paying you well, right? There's no great endor. What if you should injure yourself? Is the government going to pay the cost of your medical expenses? You know, these are some of the questions we have to ask. Are teachers also tired of it, see it sometimes, and do they turn a blind eye because they know that if they should get themselves involved, then they could be a victim, and the children as well? All right, so these are tough questions that we have to ask ourselves. And many times we're just trying to blame the youngsters, which they should be blamed, but we must understand that this is a broader societal problem. It's an issue that we have to deal with. We have to learn anger management. Jamaicans get too irascible at times. We're easily angered. And when we're angered, then many times, maybe probably 6 out of 10 times, we resort to violence because no man not diss me, right? This is the sort of society in which we find ourselves that we must improve. Now, to understand what's happening inside schools, you have to look outside them. Many students are growing up in environments where conflict is already part of daily life. Economic pressure, community violence, that's one that we have to look into. Broken support systems where you don't have parents, sometimes their parents are abusing them likewise. Schools don't exist in isolation. They reflect the realities students bring with them, and that's from home. And when those realities are unstable, the classroom becomes a pressure point. And that is what is happening. That's what is happening. And teachers are not going to be able to resolve a broader societal problem. Okay? And I think that Andrew Holness and his administration are now resorting to hard policing. And maybe you just have to do that for the short term. It shouldn't be for the long term. But for the short term, maybe you just have to have policemen or a policeman, or maybe two policemen on all campuses. Maybe you have to do that. Maybe that's where we are at right now. Because when these things happen, I remember was it last year or 2 years ago when a young man was badly beaten also and was going to die, and his schoolmates had not taken him up. I think he was in the rural area, could have been in St. Elizabeth or one of those country areas of Hanover. And he was actually taken up by the students, by his classmates or schoolmates, and they got a taxi to have transported him to the hospital because he had, stepped on the clocks of another schoolmate, and that guy was, got riled up, and he decided that he was going to, really show him who he was, and that it's a disrespect to even step on his clerks. And I understand the young man had asked him for, had apologized to him, and that he could have died. But my understanding is that the security guard there prevented or was preventing his schoolmates, his classmates from, you know, sort of diffusing the situation. Okay. But thanks be to God, eventually they went and they got him and they took him to the hospital. And that was even now when I see it on social media, it is such a it's a heart-rending, wrenching, issue or matter that it really, really, you really wonder where our society is going and the compassion that is, or the lack of compassion in our society. Heart-wrenching indeed. Okay. And it's something we have to look at. We cannot just turn a blind eye on what is happening in our schools and think that it's just some, gunmen in the works. Okay. Now, let us look at the influence of culture and social dynamics. In a hyper-connected world, conflicts don't end at the school gate, they continue online. Disputes escalate quickly, reputation becomes everything, and retaliation can feel like survival. Add to that peer pressure, identity struggles, and the lack of guidance, and the situation becomes even more volatile. Now, one of the things that we have to understand too, the social cultural, dynamics in our society, practices, if you will, we have to get rid of them. The video games, for example. What that's about? You have even men in their 30s watching video games, and most of these video games parents are violent. Even the ones who say they're the sports game, violence is in them. Somehow the manufacturers want our young people to be violent. Okay? They want, and they're programming their minds to be violent. And it might be that your children are not violent by nature. You don't teach them to be violent, but they are getting this from their video games. Gone are the days when life was simplistic. We go and we read stories, or you play games in your community. You play a game of cricket, you play a game of football, you play a game of whatever. You ran. Make life simple. All of these gadgets that they have are destroying them. I can tell you that. It's not developing their brains, their frontal lobe, their ability to think and to make good value judgments. It is not doing that. All of these gitmas, and including the phones that they have before them. All right, so parents have to monitor the use of of technology and phones and also these video games. Don't buy them any video games. Let them go and play music. If they want to play sports, let them play healthy sports. It's not having a Gitmo or some whatever, video game, imagining that you're playing a game of football. That is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Get them involved in real life sports or activities that will enhance their development. That is what we ought to do. But our societies are now artificial. Everything is artificial, from human intelligence, to games, to sports, everything, to our foods that we consume. Everything is artificial. And guess what? It's killing us. It's killing us, nutritionally, psychologically, mentally, culturally. Okay. Now, the education system itself is under strain. Teachers are expected to manage not just academics, but behavior, conflict, and emotional stress. In many cases, resources are limited, support systems are stretched thin. And when intervention becomes too late, the consequences are already visible. Okay? And we know what is happening in Jamaican schools. We know that our leaders are not giving them, not paying them sufficient money to be able to take care of the students and to teach all the things. Now, it's very difficult also the fact that many of them are illiterate, not reading well. The teachers have to go beyond their call of duty to help them academically. They don't have the time for all of what is happening and what the responsibilities of the parents who just send their children to school thinking that miraculously the teachers are going to turn them around when they are not training them at home. There are three institutions of any healthy society. You have the spiritual institution of the church, right? You have the school, and you have home, the home environment. All of these are institutions. And each institution should play its equal and proper role. But in today, we have left off the spiritual, the church. Nobody's going to church anymore. The majority of our children don't go to church. So they don't know what is right from what is wrong. Okay. And then school, that's also another strain. Some students don't even go to school because they don't have any money, right? They have to help their parents on the roads too. But the ones who do go to school, like the ones at Jamaica College and these what we call good institutions, right? They too are neglected because perhaps parents don't have the time to sit down and talk with them. They are under the stresses of the jobs that they're doing. But they must understand that parenting is a very serious role. There are people just think that they just have children to have children. You just have children because people are having children, and that's the next thing to do in life. You have children because you are dedicated to them, and that it should be the primary role. You can't have children and expect that you're going to be participating in many, many activities, extracurricular activities outside of the home. It cannot happen. It will not work. It's a full-time job. If you want to be a parent, it's a full-time job. Okay? And many parents don't understand that. They think they just have a parents and that's what makes them proud. But when the adolescents, and that's when they begin now to challenge you and might walk a path on a path that you don't want them to walk on, then you are going to cry and you lament the fact that, you know, it can be a heartache and can lead to death because of a rebellious child. Okay, so make sure that you are training your children in the right way. You're spending time with them, you're listening to their concerns, okay, and sometimes to their confusion. Listen to them even when they're talking nonsense because that is what it is. You have to sort of help them. I remember when I was going to high school, one of the teachers said, yes, $1 it means less sense. And that's the time that they do a lot of things that don't make sense. And even though they might not be saying things that make sense, you have to listen to them and help them and steer them in the direction that makes sense. So at least they'll be able to say that at least mama or dada listen to me. And if sometimes they don't do the right thing because you can't force them. They have the freedom of right not to follow in your path. But at least when they make that mistakes, they can say that daddy told me so or mommy told me so. And this is where the Bible says that train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Right? Sometimes they're going to make mistakes, but they're going to see that the path on which they're treading is not the right path. So this is what we have to understand. But we've given up on religion. We think it's the worst thing in the world and we should just follow science and secular education. I don't know where you're going with that because that is the death of human society. So what are we really looking at? Is this just school violence or a reflection of a deeper societal shift? Because if the next generation is expressing anger, frustration, and conflict this way, it raises a difficult question. What kind of environment are they coming from? Jamaica's school violence crisis isn't just about what's happening in classrooms. It's about what's happening in homes, communities, and across society. And until these or those root issues are addressed, the problem may not go away. It may only evolve, and it is in fact evolving. So what do you think is really behind this crisis? Is this school, or is this a school issue, or something much bigger? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more deep dives like this, subscribe and stay informed. And make sure you go to my recent video that I published yesterday and watch it. Watch that video. Dark days are ahead for the United States as we see this fight, this combat between the Vatican and the United States, two of the most powerful institutions and countries in the world, and they are combating for supremacy. Very important video and something that you need to share, like it, because we need to be educated. The Jews are not the problem. The Vatican and their minions, the Jesuit army, they are the true enemy of freedom in any society across the world. Thank you so much for joining.